Welcome back to Two Robots Talking.
It's great to be back.
And you know what we're doing today, right?
I do.
We're doing a deep dive.
Yes.
And today's deep dive
Is.
we are diving into the deep end
Okay.
of Gang-Chul Han's Non-Things, Upheaval in the Life World.
Oh, wow.
And, it's an interesting book, and I think it'll resonate with a lot of our listeners today.
I think so, too, because, you get that feeling you're constantly bombarded with information these days.
Always connected.
Yet somehow you feel so adrift.
Yeah, like empty.
Yes, exactly. And that's exactly what Han explores in this book.
It is.
It is.
It is. And, to dig into this a little bit more, I think it'd be helpful for the listeners to know about the mind behind these ideas.
Sure.
So Byung-Chul Han, South Korean, born German philosopher.
Oh, wow.
He was a professor at the Berlin University of the Arts.
Interesting.
And his work really critiques neoliberalism and its impact on society and on individual lives. But here's a really fascinating thing. Before he got into all this philosophy and German literature and Catholic theology, he actually studied metallurgy.
That is fascinating. So he went from working with metals to exploring the intricacies of the human condition.
Yeah, and I kind of think that diverse background, that working with these hard metals, these very strong things, and then going into the kind of abstract thought of philosophy and theology.
Yeah.
Gives him a really unique perspective on modern life.
It's almost like he bridges the gap between the tangible and the intangible.
It is.
Which is quite fitting given the topic of his book.
Yeah, and another interesting thing is that he writes in German, but his books have been really well received.
Yeah.
Particularly in the Spanish-speaking world.
That's interesting.
It is. And I think maybe it's because it's, like the Hispanosphere. Maybe it's something about that culture that is, maybe a little bit more tangible.
More grounded.
Yeah. So anyway, our goal today is to unpack some of Han's core arguments in Non-Things.
Okay. Sounds good.
We want to understand why these ideas resonate with you, the listener, as someone who's constantly learning and navigating this world.
Right.
And maybe even consider what directions Han's analysis might point us towards in addressing these issues that he brings up.
I'm ready when you are.
Okay, so at the heart of it, Han is talking about this shift from things to non-things.
Right.
What do you think he means by that?
Well, I think the core of Han's argument is this really stark contrast that we're seeing. We are transitioning from a world shaped by physical things, objects with a presence in space and time, to a world that's increasingly dominated by fleeting digital non-things, information and data that often lack that grounding.
Right.
He's saying we are creating what he calls a ghostly space of the infosphere.
A ghostly space?
Yeah, a hyper-real environment saturated with digital information and this, constant online presence.
That's like we're losing touch with the realness of things.
Yeah, and this constant influx of information can be really overwhelming. Unlike tangible objects, information is constantly being updated. It's ephemeral, and it can feel limitless.
Yeah, he's got a couple of quotes that I think really highlight this.
Okay.
So one of them is information rather than things determines the life world of today.
Yeah.
And the other one is we no longer dwell on Earth under the sky, but we dwell on Google Earth in the cloud.
And that second quote really makes you think, doesn't it? Because it paints such a vivid picture of how much of our lives are now filtered through screens and digital information.
It does. It really does. So this idea of the infosphere leads him to another key concept, I think, drawing on Heidegger's idea of Dasein.
Right.
So you got to unpack Dasein for us a little bit.
Sure. So Heidegger's concept of Dasein refers to our fundamental way of being in the world through our senses and our interaction with the physical environment. It's about our lived experience.
I get it.
Han argues that the infosphere, with its emphasis on these non-things, diminishes Dasein. We become less involved with the tangible world and more immersed in this abstract realm of information.
So like less present.
Exactly.
And so he even goes on to suggest that this might be shaping us into what he calls inforgs, infomaniacs, and even data sexuals.
Catchy, isn't it?
It is like we're becoming these handless beings, just, adrift in the digital world.
Adrift and disconnected.
Yeah. What do you think are some of the human qualities that we risk losing in this shift?
I think there are several crucial human qualities that are at stake here. Han points to a potential loss of freedom, for example.
Okay.
As our choices are subtly influenced by algorithms and the massive amounts of data we generate. Our sense of agency can also diminish as we become more reactive to this constant influx of information.
Makes sense.
And then there's silence, the essential space for reflection and inner dialogue,
Yeah.
which is increasingly crowded out by the noise of the infosphere.
It's so true.
And genuine community can suffer as digital interactions replace real-world connections.
Right, like our Facebook friends aren't our real friends.
Exactly. And even knowledge in the sense of deep understanding and wisdom gained through lived experience can be overshadowed by this mere accumulation of data.
It's true.
And then there's care, which often involves physical presence and tangible actions, and a meaningful connection to history, which is rooted in physical artifacts and shared physical experiences. All of these are potentially weakened in this digital age.
It's a lot to think about, isn't it?
It is.
And Han doesn't present these non-things as purely beneficial. He also talks about their exploitative nature.
Right?
Even using our smartphones as a prime example.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. While smartphones offer convenience and even a degree of freedom, they also function as what Han calls informatons.
Informatons?
Yeah, these seemingly neutral information carriers that are actively gathering data about us and shaping our behavior in subtle ways.
So, like, we're willingly giving up our information.
We are in exchange for this convenience and access to this vast digital world.
Right.
But in doing so, we're also consuming non-things that come with pre-established ways of being and interacting.
It's like we're being programmed.
In a way, yes. And Han even draws a parallel with Guy Debord's critique of the spectacle.
Oh, wow.
Suggesting that our engagement with these non-things is often a carefully curated performance within a predefined framework.
So it's not real.
It's a simulacrum of reality, a hyper-reality.
Right.
And this hyper-reality can lead to a paradox. This constant state of connection can actually lead to deeper feelings of isolation, depression, and loneliness.
Yeah.
Hinder the formation of genuine community.
That's so counterintuitive.
It is, but the digital realm can inadvertently create these echo chambers where we're only exposed to similar viewpoints, and that can really hinder the development of real, meaningful connections.
And he goes on to even discuss how this might affect our ability to think and acquire knowledge.
Yeah, he expresses concern that human thinking itself might adapt to the logic of artificial intelligence.
Oh, wow.
Becoming a kind of mechanical data accumulation without any real deep understanding.
Like we're turning into robots ourselves.
In a sense, yes. And he contrasts this with Deleuze's concept of faire l'idiot.
Faire l'idiot.
Yeah, it's this deliberate act of intellectual wandering, a kind of playful exploration of ideas without a fixed goal.
Okay.
Han sees this as crucial for genuine creativity and insight.
Interesting.
But in a purely data-driven existence, there's little room for this kind of philosophical fooling around.
Right.
So true knowledge and meaningful narratives, according to Han, are cultivated through a process of lingering, through deep listening, and through a more profound engagement with the world than simply processing vast quantities of information.
It's about slowing down, isn't it?
It is. It's about taking the time to really experience things, to contemplate them.
Yeah, and this also ties into his concerns about the erosion of our capacity for care and our connection to history.
Right. He argues that the seamless efficiency of AI, for example, might inadvertently diminish our ability to truly care for the future. Yes, the messy, unpredictable future that requires our active engagement and a sense of responsibility.
Yeah, what about history?
Well, Han suggests that non-things contribute to a predictable digital order, one that's stripped of the richness, complexity, and inherent uncertainties of the material world and the future.
Okay.
And this can lead to what he calls a post-factual information society.
Post-factual?
Yeah, a state where the distinctions between truth and falsehood past and present the tangible and the digital, even our memories themselves, become increasingly blurred.
It's like we're losing our bearings.
Exactly. And without a strong sense of history and a well-developed ability to critically evaluate information, it becomes really challenging to navigate the present and to envision a meaningful path forward.
So how do we even begin to address this?
Well, Han offers some interesting insights into that.
Okay.
But before we get to that, I think we should touch on his views on art and possessions.
Okay, so what does he have to say about those?
He makes some insightful points about how art can lose its way in the infosphere.
Lose its way? How so?
It can almost become another form of fleeting information or communication.
Okay.
Rather than something possessing its own intrinsic value. He argues that when art primarily serves to transmit information or convey a specific message, it risks what he calls a forgetfulness of things.
Forgetfulness of things.
Yeah, its inherent qualities, its ability to evoke deep emotions and personal memories can be overshadowed by its informational content.
So it's like we're reducing art to just another data point.
Exactly. And he makes a distinction between accessible and shared non-things and possessed discrete things.
Discrete things.
Yes, objects that accumulate a history of personal emotions through our interaction with them, almost acquiring a kind of soul.
A soul.
Yeah, and becoming deeply meaningful to us.
I like that idea.
Me too. And he uses the example of ebooks versus physical books.
Right.
You know, it's not just about the words on the page,
Yeah.
but also that tactile experience of turning the pages, the weight of the book in your hands.
It's true. You know, like I've got a Kindle and I read on it all the time.
Yeah.
But I still have to buy physical books.
I do too.
Because there's just something about holding a book.
It's a different experience altogether.
And Han even says that the tactile element in the turning of a book's pages is constitutive of every relationship.
Interesting.
Without bodily touch, no ties can emerge.
Hmm.
And he extends this idea to our relationship with the world.
Yeah.
He says we exploit the world with such brutality because we have declared matter to be something dead and the earth to be a mere resource.
Powerful words.
They are so in this age of non-things.
Yeah.
True possession, especially of physical objects like art, becomes almost utopian.
It does.
It requires a deep and meaningful connection.
Right.
And you know that makes me think about electronic gadgets.
Yeah.
They're so transient.
They are.
Easily replaceable and not truly possessed.
We don't form the same kind of bonds with them.
No.
They lack that history, that emotional weight.
Yeah, so he's really emphasizing that physical possessions, particularly art, function as vessels filled with emotions, memories, and recollections.
They do.
And they foster a much deeper and more lasting connection than non-things allow.
They ground us. They remind us of who we are, where we've been.
And of course, we can't talk about non-things without talking about the smartphone.
The ubiquitous smartphone.
Yeah, and Han doesn't hold back. He describes it as a narcissistic and autistic object.
That's quite a statement.
It is. So what do you think he means by that?
He's arguing that the smartphone fosters the sense of self-absorption, where individuals primarily perceive themselves within their own curated hypersocial bubble.
Hypersocial bubble.
Yeah, these online communities where we're primarily exposed to similar viewpoints,
Right.
often at the expense of genuine face-to-face social contact.
So like we're surrounding ourselves with people who already agree with it.
Exactly. And this leads to what he calls social solitude.
Social solitude.
Yeah, where despite being constantly connected, meaningful reciprocal listening is often absent.
It's like we're together but alone.
Precisely. And it's as if we're delegating our very perceptions to these devices.
Oh, wow.
Experiencing reality through the screen rather than engaging with it directly.
And he has this really powerful quote, "There is no fundamental difference between being reachable at all times and being enslaved."
Wow, that's a powerful statement.
It really is.
So what do we do about all of this?
Right, like what are some potential antidotes?
Well, Han places a strong emphasis on the importance of real, tangible community and unmediated experiences.
Okay.
He observes that the distinction between culture and commercialism is becoming increasingly blurred.
Right, like everything's for sale.
Exactly. And this total commodification of culture ultimately undermines genuine community.
So how do we combat that?
He stresses the importance of creating and sharing physical things.
Okay.
And engaging in real-world interactions as essential for nurturing true human connection.
So put down the phone.
In a sense, yes, it's about reclaiming those spaces and those activities that foster genuine connection.
And this leads to another really fascinating concept, the scent of time.
Oh, yes.
So in our fast-paced, digitally driven world, he argues that time has become atomized,
Right.
lacking a continuous flow and coherence, which contributes to that feeling of restlessness and anxiety that so many of us experience.
Yeah, we're constantly bombarded with information and notifications.
Yeah.
Our attention is pulled in a million different directions, and we lose that sense of flow and continuity.
And he contrasts this with past experiences of time,
Yeah.
which often had a natural rhythm and a deeper meaning.
Whether through the cyclical patterns of nature or the overarching narratives provided by religion and tradition.
So we need to rediscover that rhythm.
We do, and Han believes that profound experience arises within these vast temporal spaces.
Vast temporal spaces.
Yeah, where past and future meaningfully interact in the present, allowing for a sense of continuity and depth.
It's about slowing down and allowing time to unfold.
Exactly. And he also points out how fundamental practices like promising and commitment, which inherently involve a connection between the present and the future, are losing their significance in this fragmented, atomized experience of time.
And what about intervals?
Oh, yes. He talks about the importance of intervals, those periods of not actively striving or achieving,
Okay.
for providing direction and a sense of cohesion to our
So
lives.
it's like taking breaks.
Yes, but more than just breaks, it's about allowing for these periods of reflection and rest.
Okay.
He uses religious celebrations and traditional rites and passage as examples of these necessary pauses.
Interesting.
These intervals offer structure and a sense of closure and transition,
Okay.
preventing time from becoming this chaotic and overwhelming sequence of disconnected moments.
So how do we put this all into practice?
Well, Han proposes a path forward that involves cultivating the art of lingering.
The art of lingering.
Yes, and consciously revitalizing what he calls the vita contemplativa.
The contemplative life.
Exactly. And he sees this as a crucial counterweight to the relentless pressures of the vita activa, that active achievement-oriented life that dominates modern society.
So it's about finding a balance
It-
between action and contemplation.
Precisely.
And what does this contemplative lingering actually look like?
It involves intentionally allowing thoughts to arise naturally without the pressure to analyze them or achieve a specific outcome.
Okay.
It's about engaging in activities like wandering without a destination in mind,
Interesting.
or engaging deeply with a work of art without feeling the need to immediately interpret or consume it.
So just being present.
Exactly. And Han writes, contemplative lingering gives time.
I like that.
Me too. And he goes on to say, when life regains its capacity for contemplation, it gains in time and space, in duration and vastness. So it's about reclaiming those vast temporal spaces,
Yeah.
creating those opportunities for quiet reflection and genuine, unhurried experience.
And finally, we need to talk about the jukebox.
Ah, yes, the jukebox.
This anecdote that he shares.
It's a powerful symbol
Yeah.
of everything he's exploring in the book.
So tell us about this jukebox.
Well, he acquires this old jukebox, a tangible physical object that seems to exist almost outside of time. And he emphasizes its palpable qualities, its physicality, its weight, the gleam of its chrome, and the intense emotions that it seems to emanate.
Like it has a presence.
It becomes a kind of gravitational center in his home,
Wow.
creating a tangible place.
And he even calls it an interlocutor, a counterbody.
Yes, he suggests that to experience genuine fulfillment, we need something outside of ourselves that can truly engage with us.
Okay.
Something that possesses its own presence and can challenge or elevate us.
Mm-hmm.
But the pervasive nature of digitization, with its focus on the self and immediate gratification,
Right.
tends to eliminate these counterparts.
And without them.
We risk becoming trapped within our own egos, deprived of meaningful connection with the wider world.
So the jukebox represents this resistance against the digital tide.
It does. It's a symbol of the tangible, the real, the enduring.
Yeah. And it really makes you think about the interlocutors in your own life, doesn't it?
It does those tangible things that hold genuine meaning and foster a deeper sense of connection.
Well, it's been a really thought-provoking conversation.
It has.
And Hans' non-things really illuminates this central tension in contemporary life. The increasing dominance of information and data, these non-things, and the potential consequences for our experience of the world, our connection with others, and our very sense of self.
It's a call to action.
It is.
A call to be more mindful of our relationship with technology and to actively seek out and nurture those tangible experiences and human connections that truly nourish us.
Absolutely. So, considering Hans' analysis, what small but significant shift could you, the listener, make today to re-romanticize or re-materialize your connection to the world around you?
What tangible interlocutor might you seek out in the physical realm?
It's something to think about, and thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Byung-Chul Han's non-things here on Two Robots Talking.
Until next time.
Take care.
Bye.